Beginning immediately, the town of Arlington has issued an advisory that all residents age 2 or older wear a face covering when in public. The Select Board approves a plan to ensure all town residents have safe access to voting in the election, tentatively set for June the 6th. Now that school's out for summer, how does Arlington High handle graduation ceremonies for the class of 2020? And some Arlington High students use their brain power to come to the aid of those who need it, people who are on the front lines of this pandemic. There are more than 215 positive cases in Arlington, more than 20 deaths. All this as Arlington continues to stay together, apart. This program was edited on May the 1st.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to. This is ACMi News.
Good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Jeff Barnes. Earlier this week, the Select Board voted to reduce the town meeting agenda to essential articles at a session that has the possibility of being held at Pierce Field behind Arlington High School. Articles delayed by a vote of no action would then be heard at another special meeting to be held sometime in the fall. Town moderator John Leone anticipates that this year's town meeting may be delayed or postponed until June the 15th at the earliest because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this town meeting would look and work like no other town meeting we've seen in the recent past. One option would be to hold it outdoors, weather permitting, possibly at Pierce Field.
I thought about the football field for a couple reasons. One, it's outside, lots of fresh air, lots of moving air. It's already wired for sound, electricity, and ACMi has the press booth already wired up for TV. So it's hitting a few of our high points as far as public participation and safety. One of the biggest concerns I have is actually the town staff who's going to check people in and hand out the clickers and then getting those back. So there's a lot of moving parts at this point, but I would feel better doing it outside than doing it anywhere inside at this point in time, given what we know.
Yeah, all of that, I definitely understand all your reasoning and the good parts that you described there. I just worry about the weather.
Well, yes, we'd have to have it 2 days, one with a rain date. And speaking with Attorney Heim and Al Tosti, we kind of are thinking like June, that Wednesday around June 15th, and if it rains, we could do it the following Monday, the 24th. That would still get us in within the 10 days before the end of the year, so our budgets could be finalized and we'd be able to go forward into the next fiscal year. So that's where my date theories are coming from.
Leone adds that all these plans hinge on so many other factors taking place, among them whether Governor Baker is going to be lifting that 10-person restriction that currently is in place. Now, every week we've been in touch with our town manager, Adam Chaplain, to see what the town is doing to reduce the effects of this horrible pandemic. And this week, Adam Chaplain tells us about a new face covering advisory that's in place, and also he tells us about a new way to vote in this year's town election that keeps us all safe, and all you have to do is return to sender. The town has issued a face covering advisory. Give us the latest on that. I saw that on the webpage last night.
So we've been talking about this for quite a while. I think you and I maybe even spoke about it when we spoke last week. And the Attorney General's guidance had been that cities and towns could not issue mandatory face coverings policy. However, they've clarified that via a vote of the Board of Health, under their statutory authorities, there could be a mandatory policy. So what we decided as a leadership team yesterday was putting in a face coverings advisory, strongly worded advisory, this week was appropriate, and we expect the Board of Health to consider a vote next week to make it mandatory.
I see. I said you could be cited, correct?
Yes. I mean, I don't think our intention is to be citing people, but that legally, my understanding is that would be a possibility.
The Select Board this week has decided to make it a little safer for voters to exercise their civic duty on the tentative town election date of 6/6. So what's the latest on that?
So I'd say the number one thing we're doing is working with the town clerk's office and town council. We've come up with a postcard that we plan to send to every registered voter that if they fill it out, they put their name, date of birth, address, and a signature and send it back in. And by sending it back in, we will be putting return postage on it, so no one will have to put a stamp on it. They will therefore be requesting their early voting by mail ballot. So we're trying to cut out this multi-step process and make it as streamlined as possible. So we're really trying to get as many people to vote by mail as possible, so that we're not bringing people out to the polls en masse, on June 6th. So we're also going to continue to work with Health and Human Services and see how we can structure the polling places to be as safe as possible. And we're doing all we can. We're going to do all we can to outreach to people in addition to those postcards going out, so that we can get the word out to folks that there is an election happening. It's happening June 6th, and we're trying to do it as safely as possible.
You can see my entire interview with Town Manager Adam Chaplain on the ACMi News Facebook page. Late last week, town leaders held a virtual town forum, a public health response to the COVID-19 crisis. There, Arlington residents heard from Health and Human Services Director Christine Bongiorno, Emergency Management Director and our Fire Chief Kevin Kelly, and also Arlington's Police Chief Julie Flaherty. All three were informing residents as to what their departments were doing to respond to this COVID-19 crisis. And Chief Julie Flaherty said that fortunately traffic accidents are down because schools are out and a lot of people are working from home, and that's a good thing, quite obviously. But there has been a slight uptick in some crimes, and here she is now with an update from that forum. And she also describes how her department has had to adapt to this ever-changing COVID-19 pandemic and how we have to respond to it.
We're seeing a lot of assaults. We're seeing a lot of domestic violence incidents, people calling in with behavioral health concerns. And there's a whole list of crimes that we report to the FBI that we've seen a small increase in, looking at that same time period in 2019 and again in 2020. Along with the fire department, we're taking officers' temperatures when they report to duty and asking a series of COVID-related questions. So far, I'm happy to report that we've all been able to stay healthy during this. In the event that we do have officers who become ill, we have a plan in place to continue our services. We're very grateful to those in the community who have been adhering to the signs and recommendations and not using our parks and playgrounds. We've been responding to a lot of calls from concerned citizens about people congregating in parks and playgrounds still. So we really need the community's help to get the word out. Our parks and playgrounds are closed, and we really need people not to congregate to keep everybody safe in the community. We've been receiving a lot of calls about people trespassing on the PS school, PS field, which is the playground, the park behind Arlington High School. The fence is locked, the gate is locked, so people are climbing the fence to get in, and we really need the community's help to stop that behavior, to keep everybody safe. We're also asking our dog owners to pay close attention to the off-leash hours. Our off-leash hours in town are 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. and we've been receiving a lot of calls from citizens, and our officers out in patrol have been seeing people not adhering to those hours. So we really need the community to work together. We've also received some inquiries about what the police department is doing to protect our most vulnerable populations and our Asian American population. I'd like to say that any type of hate crime or hate incident will not be tolerated. We are vigorously investigating all claims of hate and bias, and we encourage any person who's been a victim of a crime or any type of incident to report it to the police department right away. As I mentioned, there are many ways to report these incidents. We have a text-a-tip that you can find the information on our website about. We have online reporting. You can call 911 or call the police department. We can't respond to these incidents if we don't know about them, so we encourage anybody who has been a victim to get in touch with us. The final thing that I would like to say is that the community has been very supportive, and the police department is very grateful for everything you've done to show support for our first responders. The men and women of the Arlington Police Department are here for you, and we will get through this together.
You can see the entire virtual town forum on the ACMi website. All you have to do is go to acmi.tv. ACMi news anchor James Milan had a chance to interview Middlesex County District Attorney Marian Ryan this week, and she addressed several scams that have become a favorite among those who like to prey on vulnerable people in these times.
One of the things, again, that in talking to folks dealing with the direct effects of the pandemic, we've noticed is that some of the things that happen all the time and that your office has to deal with all the time have been exacerbated. People are taking advantage of the situation. Well, that reminds me that people are always taking advantage, right, of the situations of vulnerable populations. Your office is a place where the protections for those populations is most robust. Tell us about what's happening in the area, for instance, of scams, which I know is a constant preoccupation for your office.
It is, and actually one of the last public events we did was in Arlington with seniors talking about scams. You know, anytime something happens, there unfortunately are the scammers who both take advantage of people's fear and their generosity. So we've had reports of, on the fear side, lots of people reaching out either telephonically or actually showing up at people's doors, both asking questions about the stimulus check that people are expecting. I'm the bank, I'm the federal government, confirming your routing numbers, all of that. One thing people should remember is that there absolutely will not be a call, an email, or a visit from somebody from the federal government or your bank about those checks. So if someone starts the sentence with, I'm from any of those places, I absolutely promise that's a scam. And you should step away from that. And if you feel concerned about it, reach out to the police department. Because that check is going to just come automatically. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to confirm anything with your bank. So that is totally a scam. The other thing we've been hearing is preying on people's fear about the disease, offering either some kind of at-home testing or even more insidious, offering some kind of pill or medication that will prevent you from getting the virus. And we all know that the FDA has not approved any at-home testing. And as the World Health Organization has been making clear, right now there is no proven treatment or vaccine. So anybody who's offering you any of those things is purely taking your money. And then on the other side, obviously there are lots of people suffering during this pandemic and lots of people who've been incredibly generous, giving food or money or any number of things. That should always come from you. So you should never give to people who are soliciting you. So someone showing up at your door asking for money for the local restaurants or businesses or even first responders, it's unlikely that that money will make its way to where you intended it to go. There are lots of, if you go on the websites, the Massachusetts state government is running a COVID-19 relief fund. You can certainly donate there. All of the reliable charities, the Red Cross, all of those places are taking donations, but you should initiate that. And if you're uncertain, reach out to the police department. You can reach out to our office. We're answering our phones, and you can get some information about places that you might want to donate.
You'll be able to see James' entire interview with District Attorney Marian Ryan on our webpage. All you have to do is go to acmi.tv and then click on Justice in the Balance.
Well, school is officially back in session, sort of, through remote distance learning going forward now in the curriculum, now that the state has decided that schools cannot reopen for the remainder of the school year. So starting May 4th, the curriculum will be advanced at all grade levels. And what that means is that instead of just simply being on your own, doing enrichment activities, you'll now be guided through some new material that is essential to going forward in the next grade. And what that looks like is mostly using Google Classroom, but also some video lessons that could be pre-recorded, and continuing that outreach that may also be live video chats with teachers and the entire classroom. At the high school level and middle school level, we've seen so far, superintendent and school committee have reported about 50% engagement in the enrichment activities, a little bit more at the elementary school level. So Matthew Janger, the high school principal, in an interview about all things high school, including what's being done potentially for seniors, he admits that this may be a bit of a struggle for students coming in through this now 7 weeks into the pandemic.
We'll be covering new content. There will be expectations about what it is you're supposed to do, and it's not graded, and it does not get academic credit. What it gets is recognition on your transcript. We don't want, however, to penalize a kid or a family who can't participate. You know, school in this situation, more than anything, wants to be a protective factor. When there's a lot of worry and uncertainty in the world and a lot of loss of structure in people's homes, we hope that people will engage. Staying engaged with learning in the community is the best thing for your mental health and the best thing for you in general. Learning and moving forward is good. It's just what we're about. And people want to be prepared next year. If you haven't been actively engaged in school for 6 months, you're going to have a hard time jumping back in again and knowing the material and even remembering the material you knew. It's the sort of thing that unfortunately pulls more on the independence and the resources of the families and the kids. So those of us who are more independent and more able to activate and more able to take advantage can compensate for the lack of individual contact. And those of us who are struggling with that for whatever reason are put more at a disadvantage. And that's been really the hardest part and the most heartbreaking part for us.
What were your priorities in the beginning?
This decision, the decision to send everyone home from school, was fundamentally a response to a national crisis, right? And a crisis that put a lot of kids at risk and made everybody anxious. So the first thing was trying to have sort of communication that gave people a sense of normalcy. And I think one of the unfortunate things about the way this has unrolled for everybody is the fits and starts by which we've gotten the information, and the fits and starts by which we've heard what it is we can do, and the fits and starts by which the teachers have been, we're doing this, and then we're going to try this, and now we're doing that, have made it really difficult for us to say, here's what we're going to do, and this is the plan going forward. We now have a plan, and at least it's a plan until June. But I think we're also sort of wondering in the back of our head what's going to be happening in September. So again, lots of plans sketched out. We can respond as soon as we get a direction, and we're just hoping that the epidemiologists and the policymakers give us a heads up in a timely fashion.
The other thing is about seniors. I saw the nice video that a bunch of school staff participated in, saying, you know, the traditional messages to seniors of go out and conquer the world, but carrying a different weight this day and age, obviously, within a pandemic.
Staff are crushed. They love their students. They love to teach. They care about the seniors. We're just as frustrated as everybody else about not being able to figure out, you know, quickly a way to sort of relive those expectations. There are going to be some version of yard signs and banners and honking cars, and we will do something with caps and gowns. You know, we've got them. We're going to get them out to people. We will get people their diplomas. We will figure out a way to make some sort of a presentation that is meaningful to people.
What would your message be to parents in particular during this uncertain time and the balance of working and kids at home? And you know, the superintendent said before, we need you parents. What's your message?
That we are on their side and we're working really hard to try to make it work, and that we will make adjustments as we go forward, and that they and their kids can be resilient in this.
Resilience definitely needed, especially when it comes to younger school children, where parents really need to be taking the lead here in educating their kids. And that's just not something that might magically go away come September, as we learn more about how we can deal with this virus in larger school settings. Brenda Mahoney, ACMi News.
And now an amazing story of 2 Arlington High students who are using their brain power to do what they can to help others who really need it during these times. Here's Sam Derringer with the very latest in our Ponderscope and what week would be complete without going to the living room of one Nick Antonakis. Take it away, fellas.
Hello, ACMi viewers. I am back this week with another exclusive interview. This week, we have a really interesting story involving two AHS CAD students, which stands for Computer-Aided Drafting and Design. We have Tom Makauka here and Vittorio Parite, and they have been working on a project in collaboration with Lowell Makes Workshop.
Here I have a 3D printed mask used for filtering the air you breathe. They're being donated to hospitals in need during the coronavirus pandemic. The mask was made by 3D printing these 3 or 4. This is a 4th piece. These are easily assembled like this. They just snap in like that.
Tom and Vittorio, how are you guys doing today?
Good, thanks.
Pretty good.
So, we have this project with Lowell Makes. So how did you guys first get involved?
Yeah, so we were contacted by a previous CAD student who is now at UMass Lowell, and they contacted us and told us about the project and about the things we'd be doing and the help that was needed. And we all just really chipped in. A few of us have 3D printers, so we use our personal 3D printers, and Mr. Vuitton got the school's 3D printers.
Yeah, so what we've been doing is on Lowell Makes website is they actually had a mask design that they were asking for from the local community. And as Vittorio has explained, we have access to, some of us have our own 3D printers, and Mr. Vuitton went into the school and got one of his own 3D printers, or the school's 3D printer, excuse me, and brought it to one of his students. And this allowed us to 3D print the design that Lowell was making, or was asking for, excuse me, and then send it. And then we were able to bring those out to Lowell with proper social distancing, of course. We just left them in a designated drop-off area. Then Lowell Makes actually took those masks, the shells that we printed out, and added all the foam and insulation and straps and stuff to it, and then distributed those to healthcare facilities.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun having something to do, obviously, because we do have some schoolwork, but there's a lot less compared to what we used to have. So just having a project that you can work on and really devote some effort into, and it really feels like you're making a difference, and it's a lot of fun because this stuff like 3D printing, it's what CAD students really like to do. We basically printed out as many as we could before a certain deadline that the makerspace gave us. And then at that point, we put them, at least I put them all in a box and drove out to the makerspace. And what you do is you just leave them, you ring the doorbell and then you just leave them there, and then they take care of the rest.
Where are you going from here? Do you have any, what are your next steps with your collaboration with the makerspace?
So we're going to continue to 3D print designs for them, or 3D print parts for them, and be one of their many community suppliers. But also, we've been contacted by another former CAD student, Sam Brown, and we may be working with organizations affiliated with him to try printing out parts of face masks, just because it is a little easier to print, and it's just another way we can help.
This multi-step process of first make the masks, and then you send them to the makerspace, and then the makerspace takes them and sends them out to all the different hospitals. Are you aware of how many different hospitals they've been sending them out to and how far this is going?
Yeah, we don't really know how many hospitals it's reached. What they have told us is that as a community, as a makerspace community, they made over 300 or over 800 masks were donated to the makerspace.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really awesome to hear. And I'm sure they're already going into use with the healthcare providers and the workers and all the hospitals. And I'm sure that your work is doing some great things and really making a difference. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking to me today, and really keep up the great work. This is a really cool story, and to hear how it's really affecting all these healthcare providers in the area, and your work is really making a difference, and I admire you guys for that. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Sam.
That's all for this week's Ponderscope, everybody. We'll now send it over to Nick for this week's sports update. Have a great week.
How's it going, Arlington sports fans, and welcome to the final sports update of the season. Unfortunately, after the announcement from Governor Baker that schools remain closed for the rest of the academic year, the MIA has made the tough decision to also cancel the spring season. The board of directors and staff at MIA worked extensively to try to find a solution to have the spring season under these circumstances. We applaud them for all their hard work along the way. Here on ACMi Sports, we'll keep posting highlights from previous games, as well as some fun content that has to do with professional sports. Make sure to follow at ACMi Sports on Instagram to stay up to date. Until then, let's take a look back at the hard-fought, pouring rain matchup between the Arlington girls varsity soccer squad and Billerica in the D2 quarterfinals tournament matchup, where the girls took a late win in the second half of extra time.
Nelly. Nice ball there by Carolyn. Ella sends it. Sophie with the ball. Goal!
Well, this has been the ACMi Sports Update. I'm Nick Antonakis. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back here in the fall.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We appreciate it as always. That's a great report. If you want to see the latest stories that we're doing on this pandemic at ACMi News, all you have to do is go to the ACMi webpage, go to acmi.tv, and then click on Newscast. And there you'll see the latest stories we're doing. Also, we're updating our ACMi News Facebook page daily on what the town is doing to reduce that curve. Also, if you want to see what the town is doing to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, just go to their website. They're updating that website daily, arlingtonma.gov. That'll do it for us tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Please, during this COVID-19 pandemic, stay safe. And if you can, help out others. Oh yeah, and don't forget to wash those hands. Good night.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.